The December frost bit through Manhattan like a silent predator, its icy fingers clawing at the collars of hurried pedestrians. Melania Trump adjusted her wool coat as her black SUV idled at a red light near Columbus Circle. She had just left a charity luncheon, her mind still lingering on the hollow applause and curated smiles of the event. Her driver tapped the wheel absently, eyes fixed ahead, while Melania scrolled through messages on her phone. A movement outside the window snagged her attention. There, huddled beneath a moth-eaten blanket on a bench, was a woman. Her posture was bent, as if the weight of the cold had physically crushed her spine. Gray hair spilled from beneath a stained knit hat, and her hands, chapped and trembling, clutched a cardboard sign too weathered to read. Melania leaned forward, squinting. Something about the slope of the woman's shoulders, the way her head tilted slightly to the left when she shifted. Recognition struck like a match in the dark. Her breath hitched. No. It couldn't be. The light turned green. The SUV lurched forward. Stop, Melania said suddenly, her voice sharper than she intended. The driver braked, glancing back. Here. Now. Without waiting for the door to be opened, Melania stepped onto the sidewalk. The cold air slapped her cheeks, but she barely felt it. She walked toward the bench, her heels clicking against the pavement. The woman didn't look up, too absorbed in folding a torn newspaper into a makeshift pillow. Madalin Jones, Melania whispered. The woman froze. Slowly, she lifted her head. Time collapsed. Those eyes, once bright and hawk-like behind wire-rimmed glasses, now clouded and sunken, locked onto Melania's. The woman's lips parted, revealing gaps where teeth had rotted away. A choked sound escaped her throat, half gasp, half sob. Melania's chest tightened. This was Madalin Jones, her secondary school literature teacher from Slovenia, the woman who'd spent hours refining her essays, but smuggled her English poetry books when the school library banned foreign authors. The woman who'd told her, "You have a mind that refuses borders. Never cage it." Now here she was, caged by poverty on a Manhattan sidewalk. Melania knelt, ignoring the damp concrete seeping into her tailored slacks. What happened? Madalin Jones flinched, pulling the blanket tighter. Her voice, when it came, was a rasp. You mistake me for someone else. But Melania knew. The faint scar above the woman's eyebrow, from a childhood fall shed once confessed during a detention, confirmed it. The driver approached, hovering awkwardly. Ma'am, we should. Bring the car closer, Melania said, not looking away from her teacher. Now. Madalin Jones refused to move at first. Her hands clawed at the bench, knuckles white. I don't need pity, she hissed, though her chattering teeth betrayed her. Melania hesitated. Pride had always been the woman's armor. In school, she'd worn thrifted blazers and polished her shoes nightly, insisting poverty was no excuse for sloppiness. Dignity is a choice, she'd say. Melania chose her next words carefully. This isn't pity. It's a debt. The woman's eyes narrowed. You gave me 1984 when the headmaster banned it. You stayed after class to help me apply for university scholarships. Melania's voice softened. Let me do the same. Madalin Jones' resolve cracked. Her shoulders slumped, and she allowed Melania to guide her to the SUV. Inside, the heater hummed. The teacher sat rigidly, as if the leather seats might scorch her. Melania handed her a bottle of water. Drink. Slowly. The story spilled out in fragments. After retiring, Madalin Jones had moved to Boston to live with her son, a tech engineer. For 2 years, it worked, until his wife grew resentful. A quiet ultimatum, her or us. The son chose his marriage. Then, the fall. Literally. A broken hip, medical bills, eviction. She'd bounced between shelters until a fire destroyed the last one, incinerating her ID, her late husband's letters, everything. Homelessness followed. Melania listened, her nails digging into her palms. She thought of her own son, Baron, of the security had always known. The injustice coiled in her gut like a serpent. The hotel's suite glowed with the muted warmth of lamplight, but Madalin Jones sat on the edge of the bed like a statue carved from winter. Her fingers traced the embroidered edge of the duvet, as if touching it might dissolve the illusion. Melania watched her from the doorway, a pang tightening her throat. The woman who had once dissected Kafka with a surgeon's precision now stared at a fruit platter as though it were a foreign artifact. "Eat," Melania urged, nodding toward the food. "You need strength." Madalin Jones' gaze flickered up, wary. "Why waste this on me?" Melania crossed the room, her heels sinking into the plush carpet. She sat beside her, the distance between them both vast and intimate. "Because you once told me stories were not escapes. They were weapons. Use this one." The teacher's jaw trembled. For the first time, she reached for a grape, its sheen reflecting the dim light. The past unspooled in halting sentences. Years earlier, Madalin Jones had stood in a classroom in Slovenia, chalk dust clinging to her sleeves as she diagrammed sentences on a cracked blackboard. Melania, then a restless teenager with a smattering of freckles and a hunger for the world beyond her hometown, had been her most relentless student. After class, Madalin Jones would slip her contraband books, Orwell, Plath, Baldwin, hidden inside outdated textbooks. They were small acts of rebellion. But in their town, where conformity was currency, they were dangerous. When the headmaster discovered the dog-eared copy of the bell jar in Melania's bag, had demanded Madalin Jones' resignation. The teacher refused to apologize. "They can silence me," Shed told Melania later, "but not the truth in these pages." Melania had never known the cost of that defiance. Until now. After losing her job, Madalin Jones moved to Boston, where her son, Stefan, promised a fresh start. For a while, it worked. She babysat her grandchildren, tending to their scraped knees and bedtime stories. But her daughter-in-law, a woman with a banker's smile and a heart of spreadsheets, grew resentful. Too foreign, too old, too much. One evening, Stefan placed a plane ticket to Slovenia on the kitchen table. "We think it's best," he said, avoiding her eyes. The betrayal had been a slow bleed. Then came the fall on an icy sidewalk, the fractured hip, the medical bills. Savings evaporated. The landlord, a man with a voice like gravel, handed her an eviction notice the day she returned from the hospital. Melania's fists clenched as the story unfolded. She thought of the gilded halls Shed walked, the endless resources at her fingertips. The asymmetry of suffering felt obscene. "We will fix this," Melania said, rising abruptly. But Madalin Jones grabbed her wrist, her grip surprisingly strong. "Fix?" Her laugh was a dry leaf crumbling. "You cannot fix a life. Only rebuild it." Morning found Melania in a midtown law office, her sunglasses hiding the exhaustion in her eyes. Across the desk, a lawyer in a tailored suit scanned Madalin Jones' case file, or lack thereof. No ID. No birth certificate. No proof she existed beyond a name whispered in memories. The lawyer steepled his fingers. "Without documents, she's a ghost. Social security, housing, medical care, all require paper." Melania's tone sharpened. "Then dig. Contact Slovenia. Schools, hospitals, anyone who might remember her." He hesitated. "That could take months. And costs." She slid a check across the desk, the amount blank. "Write your number. Now." By afternoon, private investigators were combing through European archives. By evening, Melania stood in a Bronx shelter, its halls reeking of bleach and despair. The director, a woman with tired eyes, shrugged. "Even if you get her papers, shelters are full. Waitlists are years long." Melania's phone buzzed, a message from Baron. "Mom, where are you? We had plans." She deleted it, turning back to the director. "What if I fund a new shelter? One with beds, clinics, job training." The woman blinked. "Why?" Because people like her deserve more than survival. Weeks later, Madalin Jones stood in a sunlit classroom in Queens, her posture straightening as she faced a dozen children of immigrants. The community center, newly renovated with Melania's quiet donations, hummed with voices in a dozen languages. A girl with braids raised her hand. "What's this word mean?" She pointed to resilience scrawled on the board. Madalin Jones' eyes met Melania's, watching from the back. "It means," she said slowly, refusing to break, even when the world wants you to. Later, over tea, Melania handed her a passport and a visa. "Legal again. Permanent." Madalin Jones traced the embossed letters. "You didn't have to." Melania smiled. "Neither did you, all those years ago." The story leaked, of course. Tabloids splashed headlines, "Former First Lady saves homeless teacher." Critics called it a publicity stunt. Supporters called it grace. Melania ignored both. On a frostless morning, she visited the shelter's construction site. Steel beams rose like ribs against the sky. A worker nodded at her. "You here to help?" She picked up a clipboard, her hands ungloved. "Yes." Madalin Jones, now tutoring students in the Bronx, still wore thrifted blazers. But her shoes were polished. Dignity, she'd say, is a choice. If this story moved you, consider joining our community of readers who believe in second chances. Your support helps us share more tales of hope and humanity. Like to spread light and subscribe to never miss a story that reminds us kindness can change the world. Thank you for being here.